Hello, once again, all my fellow patriots and you filthy leftist stalkers out there. You're listening to Angela's Soapbox. I'm Angela Box. Y'all, I'm running on fumes today. Just put it this way. Last night was the vice presidential debate. That's what the majority of the show is gonna be about today. But I had the opportunity to once again join about 5 other panelists on the Fox 26 after party, and it was really interesting. Let's just say that it was very interesting, to say the least. Before we jump into everything, let's give the sea turtle killing plastic straw. Y'all, I it's like the moderators, they just think we're stupid and they're doing too much. So it's going to the CBS moderators, Margaret and whoever else that lady was, doesn't even matter. They're all interchangeable NPCs. Let's talk about it. Okay. So yeah, the big story is obviously the debate between JD Vance and Tim Walz. And frankly, I thought JD Vance did, I give him like a 95%. Like, that was a masterclass in how to debate. I sure as hell couldn't have done it. Good debaters are able to really think on their feet and able to pull things from what their opponents say and then use them in their responses. Tim Walz basically did the same thing as Senator Kneepads, which was to memorize a few things and then, trot them out and not really listen to what the opponent was saying and respond to it. Now, the reason the moderators are getting the straw is, I will say this, they were less egregious than the ABC moderators. Now, the ABC debate, the Trump-Harris debate, which everyone was like, oh, she won that debate. It's like, did she though? Even if you take out the pretty much understood thing now that she probably got the questions in advance. ABC News had a whistleblower that came out a couple weeks ago. Have you heard jack poop about that since that happened? No. So if the whistleblower with the affidavit they put out, if that guy or girl was not legit, you would have heard ABC News. You would have heard Dana Walden, the head of ABC News. You would have heard David Muir and Lindsay Davis, the two moderators. You would have heard the production staff of ABC being like, no, this person is making this up. This is what happened. All the teams were involved. She did not get the sample questions in advance. Like, none of it. They would have had a full-on, full-throated denial, but they haven't. And not only did they not have a full-throated denial, the it's just gone. It's kind of like, what's his face? Ryan Ralph. No one's even talking about this guy anymore. The other guy that tried to kill Trump. Like, it's so obvious at this point that they're just setting everything up in order for this woman to win. They're setting everything up. If they can't kill Trump, they're going to do what they can to cheat. They're going to do what they can to make sure that they're going to get this political and literal whore over the finish line. So I guess my point is this, and I am sorry if I'm a little tired today because I am really tired. It was a long night last night at the debate after party. And then this morning I was up and, there's a lot going on. Anyway, point is, if ABC was clean and pure as the wind driven so, if the debate was not in fact rigged for Kamala Harris, you would have heard them screaming from the rooftops that it was not true, but you have not. Now, CBS clearly learned their lesson to some extent. It did not seem as if Tim Walz got any debate questions in advance. However, they claimed that they would not be fact-checking and they would allow the candidates to fact-check, but they fact-checked JD Vance like 3 or 4 times. And what was great about JD Vance, and again, masterclass in debating, and, I wish I feel like JD is the kind of debater I wish I could be, and I think that Trump wishes he could be. Trump is very much a gut person. He goes from his gut. He goes with his instincts. And, sometimes that doesn't sound as polished or as cogent as a JD Vance does. This is a guy that went to Yale Law School and, wipe the floor with Tim Walz. It was a nice wiping of the floor, but by the end of the debate, all over X, people are like, I think Walz is going to vote for Vance at this point. Like, I think that if we can get Trump over the finish line, and this is a big if, because we know what they're going to do, they're getting ready to start World War III, although I completely support Israel's right to wipe Iran off the map if they so desire, because Iran is the world sponsor of terror. But anyway, they're doing so much to make it so that Trump can't win. Obviously, tried to kill him twice, gave the literal and political whore all the questions, let her make sure that none of Joe Biden's cognitive disabilities were brought up, make sure that she wouldn't be fact-checked, like all the things we know that the whistleblower came forward and said that, yeah, they did this. So they at least didn't do that in the debate. So I would say that the CBS debate was marginally more fair. But what was amazing to me is the questions that they did not ask Tim Walz. So anyone who lives in Minnesota, and if you do live in Minnesota, I would love to hear from you, by the way. But some of the things that Tim Walz was called out, or one of the things he was called out on, was the fact that he lied about going and being in China during the Tiananmen Square incident in 1996. Which, by the way, let's keep it 100. He was not on the side of the guy standing in front of the tank, okay? Because now we come to find out that there is a whistleblower, a congressional whistleblower, that is coming forward, and he's got receipts. He or she has receipts of a chat or email string or some, chat room or something like that, where basically there is a direct tie with the Chinese Communist Party and Tim Walz. Now, the monitors didn't ask him about that. And this is the thing that he did ask. They're like, well, you said you were there, but actually all these people are saying, no, you were not in Hong Kong during that time. And Tim Walz had to basically admit on live television that he lied. He made it up. And it was just, I'm just a knucklehead. I'm just a folksy guy. That was the kind of vibe he was trying to present. And it didn't work because there have been several things that Tim Walz has not been truthful about. His claim that he was a combat veteran, that's not true. That is demonstrably not true. He did not fight in Iraq. He did not fight in Afghanistan. And, Vance has said this as someone who did serve in the Marines and in combat. He said, listen, no one is taking away from the fact that Tim Walz served honorably in the National Guard for 17 years or however long he served. No one is saying that didn't happen. What we have a problem with is the lies, is the pretending to be something that you're not. And this is kind of a theme that we see with Democrats in general, because, I've said this before, that Kamala Harris and Meghan Markle, for example, are two sides of the same coin. They are both imposters. They are both malignant narcissists. They both treat their staffs horribly. And because they know that they're not really qualified or smart enough or accomplished enough or whatever to be in the positions they're in, they either overcompensate or they treat the people around them like dirt. So, there's no case to be made that Tim Walz is a jerk to people. Like, I don't know if he is or he isn't, but certainly there have been lots of stories about her, Kamala Harris, being just an a-hole to people. 92% staff turnover. That doesn't happen if you're a beloved boss. So, it's not that Tim Walz was in the National Guard honorably. That's not the issue. It's that he lied about his service. He lied about being in war, and he lied weirdly. This is a weird lie, and it's a verifiable lie. It's kind of like when Kneepads is like, oh, I worked at McDonald's, and she's kind of tried to dine out on that for many, many years in her public life. And now that she's running for president, which no one voted for president, but whatever, save democracy and all that, she never has produced receipts that she worked at McDonald's. The McDonald's Corporation hasn't done her a solid and dummied up some employment records. The fact that they haven't dummied up employment records tells you there aren't any employment records to dummy up. And if they did try and fake it, people would be able to be like, no, that isn't true. Pete, you know that if McDonald's tried to, run interference for Kneepads, that people that worked at McDonald's during this time would be like, no, here's my space stub from, 1992 or whatever, whenever she claims to work at McDonald's. And that's not what it looked like. Now, as someone who worked in fast food, I worked my first job, my first paid on the payroll, not counting babysitting or, mowing the lawn or whatever. My first paid job was at Little Caesars. Okay. I was 15 years old. I've got receipts. I've got contemporaneous stories. She doesn't have any of that. So it's just a very strange thing to lie about. And Tim Walz lying about being in China during Tiananmen Square is the same kind of vibe. It's the same kind of vibe as Joe Biden claiming to have graduated the top of his law class or getting a full ride to law school or his son Bo dying in combat when he died of brain cancer, or his just all the weird lies that it always seems to be Democrats telling these weird personal story lies. Now, I said this on the show last night. I was like, listen, here's something that I don't think people are focused on here when we talk about Tiananmen Tim. The fact that now we've got a whistleblower coming out saying that this guy, been to China 30 times. First of all, who the AF goes to China 30 times? Unless you are a missionary or you're a fellow traveler, okay? And Tim Walz was not there on a biblical missionary mission. He was there as a fellow traveler. He met with Chinese communist officials, and he basically became an undercover plant for them, okay? So he goes to China, and then he comes back, and he teaches fourth graders about the joys of communism, about the greatness of communist China, about how everything in China is, it's fair, and you share, and it's equal. All the crap that the kids that you see on college campuses, that's the garbage they're being spoon-fed. They're just sieves. And these professors and these teachers just fill their minds with absolute garbage. And again, there's a reason why Democrats don't want the Department of Education disbanded. They don't want it disbanded. That's like their main indoctrination farm. Like that ain't gonna fly with them. But no one is asking, why is Tim Walz going over there 30 times? So it's not just that he lied about being at Tiananmen Square or being in Hong Kong during the time of Tiananmen Square. It's that, they called him out on it barely. And he's up there flubbing around. He's like, I'm just a knucklehead. I just, I made a mistake. It's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You used it when you ran for Congress, just like you said you were a combat veteran when you ran for Congress, when you ran for governor. You've been dining out on these lies for umpteenth many years. And just now you're getting caught at them. Now, when we get back, I'm going to get into some of the stuff that the moderators didn't even get to. And, to be fair to JD Vance, there's only so much he could do because the stupid things that they were wanting to talk about, like January 6th, it's like, I love JD Vance's comeback on that too. So we'll get to all that when we get back. You're listening to Angela's Soapbox. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Angela's Soapbox. Okay. Let's get to some of the things that the moderators just couldn't bring themselves to get to because they were too busy talking about abortion and January 6th and saving democracy. Okay. Now let's go through those subjects and put to rest this notion that January 6th was anything other than an inside job. I've talked about this until I am blue in the face. And I'm telling you what, being on a stage with 5 other people, 4 of whom have no idea the things I'm saying that actually happened on January 6th. For example, the January 6th committee doctoring the video to make it seem so much more ominous than it was, putting sound over it, not showing the full clips of things where people are just like meandering around, the clips of cops lifting up barricades and ushering people in and, undoing the magnetized door, like all the things that we know, Antifa banging on the windows, breaking the windows, and, patriots being like, that's Antifa, that's Antifa. And all the things that they did to set these people up and the evilness, and the evil, that's not really a word, the evil behind setting up good people to be patsies in order to stop the Republicans from going to the floor of the Senate and presenting evidence of election anomalies. And I'm just so tired of this idea that January 6th was the worst day in American history. And when you have a cursory knowledge of it, or don't really understand why it happened and why there was a setup, and all the things that we know that something in the milk ain't clean. I mean, they brought up the fact that Donald Trump doesn't accept the results of the 2020 election. Well, neither do I, and neither does Vance. And he's like, listen, Vance was like, listen, both he and I believe that there were some problems with the 2020 election, but I'm looking forward, I'm looking ahead. And I think that's the right way to frame it, because until we have a situation where we have an honest media, or at least one outlet like Fox, which don't hold your breath, because Paul Ryan sits on the board of Fox Corp. And Paul Ryan is as disgusting as Liz Cheney and the rest of the Never-Trumpers. But anyway, let's maybe, if Trump gets back in, and I'm giving it a big if here, because in a sane world, this shouldn't even be close. Like, this shouldn't be close. Trump will win, running away with it. The polls are showing Kamala Harris massively underwater in Michigan. Elise Slotkin, the congressman from Michigan who's running for Senate, a Zoom meeting of hers leaked this week saying she's in trouble. And I think that's nationally she's in trouble too, because she's a terrible candidate. And she's a cipher, and she's a literal and a political whore, and she's an imposter, as I made mention. But if we can get to a point in this country where we have actual congressional hearings of what actually happened on January 6th and why it happened, if the books are opened on the 2020 election, and we look at what the machines were up to, the software was up to, the mail-in ballots, etc., all the things that we know that were going on. In fact, in Arizona this week, they come to find out that almost 220,000 illegal voters have been floating around the atmosphere and have been voting for decades. And it's like, Katie Hobbs's illegitimate governorship, and whoever the attorney general is, her illegitimate attorney generalship, they're going after people who are like, listen, something is wrong here. We need to stop Arizona's electors from certifying this election. That's all they were doing. So basically proving their point. But I digress. I mean, it is such a rabbit hole, okay? And my point is this, is that the majority of the American people have literally no idea about any of this. So all they hear is this song and dance about saving democracy, and that January 6th is the most solemn day in American history and the most horrible day, worse than 9/11. All right? That's what they try and tell you. And what J.D. Vance was saying was that, there were a lot of problems with that election. And not only that, but all of us are old enough to remember that Hillary Clinton and the media and Adam Schiff and every single Democrat lied and made up the idea of the Russia collusion hoax. Obama, Comey, Clapper, all of them. And so it's like, it's this weird amnesia that the media is allowing to go forward. And we know why they have to allow it to go forward. Because if they really started digging into the lies that they've told, like they'd have to give up the ghost here. It's again, it's kind of like how the ABC whistleblower, you haven't heard hide nor hair of this person because they don't want you to. Because it's the old tree falling in a forest adage, and that no one heard that tree fall, so it didn't happen. So they've been very successful at shaping the narrative of January 6th. And the fact that they wasted time on that question when we could have gotten into any number of Tim Walz's record. Like, for example, let's see, talking about democracy, saving democracy, etc. I think J.D. Vance missed a pretty easy layup here, but unfortunately, there was so many parts of the question that Walz was answering, and then the moderators were asking a multi-pronged question. So Vance was, he was trying to think, how am I going to respond to him and also answer the question? I mean, again, overall 95%, really good, way better than I could have ever done. But there was a real easy layup that I think he missed, and that has to do with the BM rights of 2020. You want to talk about democracy. You want to talk about peaceful protest. The January 6th protest was peaceful until the police started shooting air rifles into the crowd and tear gassing people and lifting up barricades and allowing people, like all the things that we know that happened. Okay? Tim Walz, as governor of Minnesota, he allowed BM and Antifa to run roughshod over Minneapolis and St. Paul of 2020 and in 2020, did not care about the hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars of property damage, of theft, of people who lost their lives, innocent people who lost their lives because of his bloodlust to make a political issue about a crackhead that died of a fentanyl overdose. Like, that's how evil Tim Walz is, that he was one of the governors that allowed this. He's also one of the governors that pushed sick people into nursing homes in order to kill them, in order to jack up the death rate, which it's one of these things of revisionist history that Democrats have been very successful at. This idea that everything, Trump just completely, all of 2020 was a disaster. Trump sucks. It's like, y'all let loose a virus, quote unquote, that had a 99.9% survival rate. You wouldn't allow discussion about treatments and prophylaxis that work, like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, and the idea that masks are ridiculous and the plexiglass is just retarded and the arrows on the floor are stupid and your masks are stupid. Like, all those things were censored. All those things on social media, which JD Vance talked about, were censored by people like Tim Walz, people like Kamala Harris. They wanted to make sure that no one talked about these things so they could blame it all on Trump. So even one of the independents, quote unquote, but he's amazingly voting for Kamala Harris, on the panel last night, he was like, listen, until COVID, things were really good under Trump's America, in Trump's America. Like, objectively, by every metric, way better than what you guys are offering. And the fact that, we have a guy that admits that, and this is the problem I have, and don't get it twisted here, all right? If you're black, don't get it twisted. But here's the problem I have with the black community. Like, for example, Jolanda Jones and this guy Marcus Allen were on the panel with me last night. And they both are talking about how, crappy it is right now and how hard it is. And it's like, and then out the other side of their mouth, they're like, but we're going to vote for the woman. I mean, the absolute narcissist idiot who allowed this all to happen, who did these things. We're going to vote for more of this. Like, that's what I don't understand. When Marcus Allen's and the guy that was on the panel with me, he said, by any metric, it was better during Trump until COVID. And we all know the reason COVID happened. It was to get rid of one guy. I'm not going to the whole thing again. If you have to, the 10,000 foot view of this is such a weirdly interconnected web to where COVID leads to election fraud leads to January 6th, January 6th leads to shutting down dissent leads to Elon Musk buying Twitter. Elon Musk buying Twitter opens up a free speech platform that the Democrats desperately want to shut down. Like, it's all connected. And so, the frustration I have, I guess, is that the things that you and I know, the things that you and I have receipts for, our friends that are either moderates or on the left, they think we're lying or they think we're stupid because their media tells them so. And they don't understand that they are actually the useful idiots, which obviously they are. Now, when we get back, I'm going to talk more about Tim Walz's record, things that they did not get to in the debate, which they should have, but they did not. And, JD Vance can't do everything, like I said, but we're going to talk about it. You're listening to Angela's Soapbox. I will be right back. Welcome back to Angela's Soapbox. Okay, so here's some of the things that the moderators couldn't bring themselves to discuss, and unfortunately, JD did not have the time to bring all these things up. Now, it's funny, they harped on abortion a lot, and I'm going to say this as someone who is a pro-life person. but who also is not really keen on telling people what to do. The Republicans are in a real pickle about this because the Democrats, whether we can say, yeah, the Republicans want to, secure the border and have a working economy for everybody and, have crime go down and get back to normal with, parents being in control of their children's education and whatever they learn in school, whatever. Like, we could go into all that. But Democrats, all they've been able to talk about is abortion. And unfortunately, they've been successful at this. And that's like the number one thing they're running on, which is very unseemly to me. Again, as someone who's a pro-life person and who thinks, even though I am pro-life, I do understand that this is a hearts and minds issue. And we as the Republicans need to do a better job at maybe educating people. I mean, there's like 25 different ways not to get pregnant at this point. Like, the morning after pill is not an abortion pill, okay? So, if you're like, oh, I was raped. And well, come on, man. If you get raped and you go to the hospital to do your rape processing, which, I never wish on anybody. Don't misunderstand. But that's one of the first things they give you now is the morning after pill. So this idea that there's all these, women running around who've been raped and who are being forced to give birth it's a lie. So the Democrats have been very successful in, making these grand stereotypes or these small individual cases into much bigger mountains than they truly are. So JD Vance was like, listen, we have to do a better job as a party in order to encourage people to have families and encourage women to keep their children or adoption or things like that. And again, I think as people of goodwill, educating people on, this is something that I think children should learn in school, for example, of how a baby is formed and the development of a baby. And if more young women and young men understood that, well, maybe they wouldn't jump into bed with each other so young, or maybe if they did, they would make sure that they wouldn't get pregnant. Like, again, there's many, many ways not to get pregnant. But what was gross is that not one single moderator, they talked a little bit about Tim Walz, how he signed a bill. And actually, I have to say I was surprised that the moderators did bring this up, that as governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz signed into law one of the most barbaric abortion access laws in the country. I mean, that California and New York is like the same. Abortion up to 9 months. Abortion, if a baby has the temerity, as I like to say, to survive a late-term abortion, then the doctor can either kill it or let it die. And Tim Walz signed that into law, and he's up there lying his face off. Again, he lies a lot, so nothing new. Saying, that's not what the bill says. And JD Vance is like, well, actually, it's exactly what the bill says. And so today, all the people around are like, oh, yeah, that is what the bill says, actually. And even on the show last night, to Isaiah Carey's credit, he's like, yeah, that's what the bill said. Like, he's lying about the bill he signed. Anyway, I think that the fact that the moderators let that question in was interesting, but there was a missed opportunity to, again, talk about the barbarism of a late-term abortion. JD Vance touched on it a little bit, but he also, he said, as people, as Americans, most of us think that abortion after the first trimester, that's it, okay? Now, I don't agree with abortion in the first trimester at all, okay? However, we are dealing with a political hot potato right now. And the longer that we play this game, the more the Democrats get to run on this and be successful at it. So again, it's an idea of education. And if we educate our young people about the development of a baby in the womb, that would go a long way, I think, to stopping abortion as healthcare. This argument that abortion is healthcare when it clearly isn't. Now, some of the things that, again, they didn't bring up, and it was a missed opportunity, I think, from Vance, because, again, he's trying to do all the things. He's trying to answer the questions, and he's trying to answer what the moderators say, and then respond to what the ridiculous things Walt says or whatever. But one of the things Tim Walz did, and they didn't bring this up because they know this is, talk about a political football or a political hot potato. This transing of kids, it's like the border being closed. It's like a 70 to an 80% issue. And when you talk about children, it's even higher. Like no sane person, just like no sane person or most people do not think abortion should be legal at all after the first trimester. Like if you can't get it done in 16 weeks, have the baby given for adoption. Most people also do not want governments and school districts, which again, it's why the Democrats do not want to let go of the stranglehold on the public school system, because it's one of their best ways to indoctrinate kids that have been, brainwashed and gaslit into thinking they've been born in the wrong body. And so the thing that Tim Walz did, one of the most radical in the country, he said that a parent who does not, quote, affirm their child's gender identity can be taken away from that parent and then, put into foster care and then give them the, quote, gender affirming care they need, which means shove them full of intersex or cross-sex hormones and cut off their genitalia or sterilize them. Like, that's what that means. And so not only that, he signed a bill into law that said that if you are a kid in any part of the country and your parent is not allowing you, because you're a minor and because you're a kid, that your parent is not allowing you to cut off your genitalia and shove your body full of cross-sex hormones because you've been propagandized by the left, then Minnesota can come get you from your parent, bring you to Minnesota, and then perform the surgery on you. Like, to me, that's a slam dunk issue. I'm not sure why Vance wasn't able to get that in, but, it is what it is, okay? Now, Kamala Harris, she, it's funny, not really talking about her much this show, but she tried to, give a what's the word I'm looking for? An excuse, I guess, for when Tim Walz crashed and burned. And again, I don't think he crashed and burned. I think that it would have been a mistake for Vance to underestimate him, and I don't think he did. I think he treated this debate very seriously. He was very well prepared, but he's also very smart and very sharp and very good on his feet, and he's got the facts on his side. And, all the Democrats have are lies and propaganda and batshit crazy policies. So anyway, I don't think Tim Walz crashed and burned, per se. I just think that, as Vance said, he's in a real untenable position playing whack-a-mole with an administration and a woman who never got any votes, who never won any election, who literally just got selected after they got rid of Joe Biden. So this idea that Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are this juggernaut of amazingness that is going to make the country better is a joke. Where's where I'm going? Oh yeah, so Kamala Harris tried to, basically set up the expectation that Tim Walz, if he completely crashes and burns, well, she said that the reason she picked him is because it was after a night of insomnia, and it was just she went on her gut. She went on her gut to pick Tim Walz, and it's like, it's for anybody that follows politics, the better choice would have been Josh Shapiro. Now, Josh Shapiro is as leftist as Tim Walz is, but he's less crazy sounding, and he's Jewish, which would have appealed to Jewish Democrats. But the dirty little secret is, of course, is that the base of their party is rabidly anti-Israel. So that would not have worked. So, if she had any brain in her head, she would have gone with a more moderate person, but she didn't. She went with a radical. This aw shucks guy who's, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Guy goes to China 30 times for some unknown reason, except we know why, because he's a communist. He's a communist. Anyway, we've got... But we'll get to some more stuff. Kamala Harris, is truly a detestable dirtbag. I'll get to a reason why she is when we get back. We got one more segment. You're listening to Angela's Soapbox, and I will be right back. Welcome back to Angela's Soapbox. Okay, here's some things that have gone on this week too. Like, we can't just talk about the debate all day. Obviously we can, but there are other things that went on. So Kamala Harris, I mean, last week, I think it was last week, she went on Oprah and that ridiculous word salad interview. She went on with Stephanie Rule a few days ago, another softball interview where she just completely bombed out. It's like she doesn't even try because she knows that she's going to be given a pass and she's not going to be like held accountable for anything. So she just, makes word salads and, it's like, I'm just a girl, I just look pretty. Anyway, so over the weekend was this horrific hurricane Helene. And I am so tired of weather cycles, which is what we're in. We're in a particularly, heavy hurricane season. Although I guarantee you, because this happens every single year, we have one or two really bad storms. Certainly Beryl in Houston was terrible, but Helene was like holding my beer. But every year we have 1, 2, or 3 really bad hurricanes. And every single year they say the same thing. Like, oh, this is climate change, because of climate change, blah, blah, blah. And, you would think that Kamala Harris and the octogenarian criminal that supposedly is still running the country, but no one really thinks he is, you would think that they would use this opportunity to talk about climate change and, go and basically virtue signal about how they want to stop climate change. Again, I don't know how we're going to stop weather from occurring or weather cycles from being weather cycles. These people are so dumb. I mean, it's just so dumb to me. And JD was great in the debate on this. And he was like, look, Donald Trump and I, everyone, we want clean air, clean water, and we need to be producing our own energy here because we have the cleanest environment in the world. And if we really care about carbon emissions and climate change, then we should be getting our own energy and using our own things and producing it all here. Like, duh. Instead of going and doing business with the most filthy, dirty countries in the world, like India and China. I'm talking about the air pollution quality and the carbon emissions, whatever. Anyway, so you would think that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden would have taken the opportunity when a horrible storm hit to use this for, once again, to shill for the idea that we need to give more of our money over to the government and allow them to allocate it in the name of fighting climate change. It's ridiculous. Again, stupid. We have weather patterns that happen every single year, and some years are more crazy than other years. It's been going on since the beginning of recorded history. Anyway, this heifer, and I said this today in this bitch news, Kamala Harris, man, she is so sure that the media is not going to call her out on anything. She is so sure she doesn't have to do interviews, that she doesn't have to answer questions. She goes to a fundraiser last weekend, and it's fine, go to a fundraiser, but she's the sitting vice president as Hurricane Helene is ripping through parts of the South. And Biden and her could not be bothered. She, has this ridiculous photo op that was another fail because this woman is a moron she's pretending to be on a phone call and her earphones aren't plugged in. And she's pretending to write something else. She's a very important person cosplaying what it looks like to do what very important people do in a crisis because she's an imposter. As I said, she's writing, it's not even anything on the paper. Anyway, she finally, drags herself to, I believe, North Carolina, which is basically destroyed. And the reason the Democrats aren't doing anything about this, and the reason that Joe Biden's out there saying, Americans are just, you're going to have to get a GoFundMe for this because we're all tapped out. It's like, really? Oh, you're all tapped out. I'm going to get to that in a second. But Kamala Harris goes to North Carolina, says about 5 minutes on 2 minutes, speaks for 2 minutes off a teleprompter, doesn't take any questions and leaves. And the media's like, oh, Kamala Harris made remarks today about Hurricane Helene. It's like, Oh, thanks, lady. Meanwhile, Donald Trump goes down with his own money. Like, it's not a campaign cost, his own money, and he starts a GoFundMe for people, and essentially is bringing food and oil and gas, and Elon and him are working together to put Starlink up so people can use their phones and get internet and be connected. Because North Carolina is going to be without power, they're thinking, like, for a month. So all of us who lived through Hurricane Beryl, again, Helene is like, hold my beer. Like, if you thought a week was bad, how about a month? So the Democrats don't care about people in the South, because if they live in Republican areas, they can't be bothered. And the media won't call them to the carpet. They won't hold them accountable for not giving a crap. They won't hold Kamala Harris accountable for going and, hobnobbing with the elites of the elites. And then out of the other side of her mouth, talking about how we need to tax all the billionaires. And if we tax all the billionaires, then everything would be great. And the dirty little secret is this. If you took every single penny that every billionaire had, whether we're talking about Elon Musk or Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs' widow or whoever, Bill Gates, whatever, you confiscate all their money, all the billionaires' money in the world. Guess what? That would only be enough to run the government for 10 months. And then where are you? So once again, and I said this on the show, Democrats have like this very juvenile understanding of how economics works. Like, when you overtax, when you tax corporations, like Kamala Harris wants to do, when you stop a 28% tax on corporations and a 44% tax on unrealized gains, which everyone is like, lady, you can't do that. People aren't even taking money from their accounts and you're going to tax it? Like, how does that work? When you tax a corporation, it gets passed on to the consumer. Anyone with a third grade understanding of supply and demand knows this. Why don't Democrats know this? Why is it the same garbage we always hear from them? Oh, billionaires need to pay their fair share. Anyway, I mean, there's just, she's partying with Hollywood, partying with these elites, as the South is just being destroyed by this hurricane, and then goes and gives a 2-minute speech, canned speech, and a tweet about how, hearts and prayers are with you. Now, it's just unseemly. It's just unseemly. And Stephen Miller of America First Legal brought this up, and it's like, the reason you're not seeing FEMA in South Carolina and North Carolina and Florida and all the places this hurricane hit, if I'm missing places, forgive me, it's because FEMA has been basically shape-shifted in order to be another piggy bank for illegal aliens in Ukraine. Yeah, Joe Biden, who basically goes on TV yesterday and said, oh, those of you who got hit by this thing and have lost everything, well, you're on your own. We don't have any money. You know why? Because he just gave another, blank check to Vladimir Zelenskyy, whatever his name is, Zelenskyy. He gave, billions of dollars to Taiwan, billions of dollars to Israel. And on a side note of that, I am just not one of those conservatives that has any time or any patience for bashing the state of Israel. Like, they're literally the only democracy in the Middle East that is stopping radical Islam from getting a stranglehold throughout the entire region. And it's gotten a stranglehold in much of the region. And I have no problem with our money going to Israel. Like, I just don't, okay? Because Israel can fight the lunatics, so we don't have to fight them. Now, on that note, Israel is attacking Lebanon right now. They are basically, Netanyahu is saying, listen, the Iranian people, hang on, Iranian people, because we know that you hate your leadership. We know that you hate these radical Islamists. And we know that you're ready to join the civilized world again. Because remember, before 1979, Iran, Lebanon, it looked like Paris in the Mediterranean. Like, when the radical Islamists took a stranglehold on that region, that's when things started to go in the toilet. And Netanyahu was like, listen, I got news for you. This ain't going to take that long. And so whether or not Joe Biden agrees with it or Kamala Harris agrees with it or not, Israel's going to defend itself. And Israel, from day one, said we're going to wipe Hezbollah off the map. In order to wipe Hezbollah off the map, you got to get rid of the head of the snake, which is Iran. So I'm all for this. But anyway, went on a bit of a rabbit hole on that one. Now, something else that they talked about, well, immigration. We talk about this every week. Kamala Harris went to the border last week. She's like, I'm big and bad. That's right. That's right. I'm wearing my Zelenskyy coat, and I'm wearing my $45,000 Tiffany necklace, and I got my sunglasses on. I'm big and bad, and I'm at the border, and I'm your commander in chief. It's like the Border Patrol hates this lady. Like the Border Patrol union, like slammed the hell out of her and was like, "You are a piece of excrement, essentially, and nothing you're doing is helping. It's making it 10 times worse." And, you know, the people that claim to care about women and children and girls, only when they get abortions, they don't care about women and children and girls who are being trafficked by drug cartels, being used as mules, which Tim Walz lied about and said that's not happening. It's 100% happening. Human beings are being trafficked all over the place. They've lost 325,000 children, this criminal administration, because they've got to feed the need of their child-touching buddies all up and down our society, evidently. Listen, these people are beyond. If we had an honest media, you would know, ladies and gentlemen, you would know that ICE just released numbers. They tried to slip this in under the cover of darkness, but we know that there's probably, 50 million illegal aliens here by now. That's a low number. They've let in 15 to 20, and then add that on top to the 30 or 40. They're already here. Yeah, you can do the math. It's unsustainable. That's why housing's so high. That's why schools suck. I mean, one of the reasons. It's just, it's all compounded by this illegal immigration. Anyway, so ICE just let this out. I was surprised that they slipped this out. It was like someone in ICE is based here. Or we know that ICE on its own is based, but like someone at the top is like, we're going to slip out these numbers because the American people should know about this. Biden-Harris administration has let in 13,000 convicted murderers, 15,000 rapists, 425 convicted criminals, 350 terrorists, 9 surface-to-air missiles smuggled in, which we came to find out we're going to target Donald Trump. That's how they were going to try and get him the third time, is target his airplane, and 325,000 missing children. That is what the Biden-Harris administration has done. And for the life of me, when I talked to Democrats on this panel, for example, last night, and with a straight face, again, they talk about how crappy everything is and how we can't go back. It's like, go back? You mean to what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have given us? You want more of this? And they're like, oh, it's really crappy, but yet we want more. Make it make sense, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I cannot with these people. It is mind-numbing dealing with Democrats. It truly, truly is. All right, that is my time, unfortunately. But I will be back next week. You have been listening to Angela's Soapbox. Until next time, everybody, keep kicking ass and taking names. Peace!